Imagine a nation rising quietly for decades, suddenly taking a step so bold, so calculated, that it leaves the world's most powerful superpower reeling. A nation that refuses to bow, refuses to follow, and refuses to compromise on its sovereignty. That nation is India, and that one bold move didn't just make headlines, it humiliated the United States on the global stage. Tonight, we're going to unpack exactly how it happened, why it matters, and what it says about the balance of power in the 21st century. Strategic autonomy is the cornerstone of India's foreign policy, a principle that has guided the nation through decades of complex global dynamics. At its heart, strategic autonomy is about asserting independence in decision-making, ensuring that national interests take precedence over external pressures or alliances. For India, this has meant a careful balancing act, maintaining partnerships with global powers such as the United States, while simultaneously cultivating strong relationships with countries that the US considers competitors or adversaries. This approach allows India to pursue its own path, rather than being forced into the strategic dictates of any single power bloc. It requires a sophisticated understanding of international politics, a robust domestic policy framework, and the courage to make decisions that may not always align with the expectations of dominant global players. Strategic autonomy, therefore, is not merely a diplomatic slogan, but a practical strategy that influences defense, economic, and technological choices, allowing India to emerge as a self-reliant actor on the world stage. One of the clearest demonstrations of India exercising strategic autonomy has been in the defense sector. While the United States has attempted to influence India's procurement decisions, urging it to prioritize American defense technology, India has often chosen to diversify its sources. Deals with countries like Russia for advanced fighter jets and missile systems, for instance, were made despite significant US pressure and warnings of potential sanctions. These decisions were not made lightly. They involved careful assessment of operational requirements, cost-effectiveness, and long-term strategic benefits. By pursuing a multi-aligned defense strategy, India ensures it is not dependent on a single supplier, thereby retaining leverage in international negotiations. This independence sends a powerful message. India will not subordinate its national security interests to global power politics, and it can make calculated choices that advance its military readiness without bowing to external influence. Economic considerations also play a crucial role in strategic autonomy. India's growing market and rising industrial capabilities give it a bargaining position that few countries can ignore. Strategic autonomy allows India to resist undue pressure in trade negotiations, technology transfers, and investment deals, ensuring that any partnership contributes meaningfully to national development rather than merely serving the interests of foreign powers. This approach has been evident in India's cautious handling of critical technologies and its willingness to engage with multiple global partners simultaneously. By maintaining this flexibility, India preserves its ability to negotiate from a position of strength rather than dependency. Strategic autonomy is thus as much about economic self-reliance as it is about military or diplomatic independence, creating a comprehensive framework for national empowerment. On the international stage, strategic autonomy enables India to act as a decisive voice in global forums. Whether it is in climate negotiations, international trade discussions, or multilateral security arrangements, India's independent stance allows it to champion its priorities confidently. It can support initiatives aligned with its interests while resisting those that may compromise its sovereignty or long-term goals. This calculated assertiveness has enhanced India's credibility and influence, demonstrating that it is capable of shaping global debates rather than merely responding to them. In essence, strategic autonomy transforms India from a passive participant to an active shaper of world affairs, reinforcing its stature as a rising power that cannot be easily sidelined. India's defence procurement decisions have long been a reflection of its commitment to strategic independence and self-reliance, and they have often sent shockwaves through global power corridors, particularly in Washington. Unlike many nations that align their defence acquisitions closely with a single dominant power, India has pursued a diverse and pragmatic approach, sourcing equipment, technology, and expertise from multiple countries. This is not simply about acquiring hardware, it is a calculated strategy designed to reduce dependency, increase bargaining power, and ensure that national security priorities are never compromised by external political pressures. In recent years, this approach has become particularly significant as India modernizes its armed forces and confronts emerging regional challenges. By making procurement decisions based on operational requirements, cost-effectiveness, and strategic alignment rather than political convenience, India has demonstrated a level of autonomy that is both rare and consequential on the global stage. A prominent example of this assertiveness is India's defence deals with Russia, including the acquisition of advanced fighter jets, missile systems, and artillery technology. Despite persistent US pressure and warnings about potential sanctions under laws like CAATSA, India proceeded with these contracts, prioritizing its operational needs and strategic calculus over diplomatic convenience. These decisions highlight a key principle in India's procurement policy. National security cannot be subordinated to the expectations or threats of another country. By maintaining access to diverse sources of defence technology, India not only ensures operational readiness, but also secures leverage in negotiations with all its partners. It sends a clear signal that India's defence policy is independent, pragmatic, and resilient against external coercion, an approach that has often surprised or frustrated US policymakers accustomed to wielding influence over allied procurement decisions. India's approach to defence procurement also reflects a forward-looking strategy focused on domestic capabilities. Initiatives under programs like Make in India have sought to boost indigenous production of defence equipment, reducing reliance on imports while nurturing the domestic industrial base. This dual approach, balancing foreign acquisition with domestic development, allows India to access cutting-edge technology from abroad while simultaneously building long-term self-sufficiency. It also strengthens India's position as a rising power capable of producing sophisticated military systems, which in turn enhances its credibility and negotiating power on the international stage. This strategy, while bold, underscores India's insistence on controlling the terms of its defence modernisation rather than being dependent on the political whims of any single country. The ripple effects of India's procurement choices extend beyond defence alone. They influence diplomatic leverage, trade relations, and geopolitical alignments, demonstrating that military decisions are inherently tied to broader national strategy. By making calculated acquisitions outside US-dominated frameworks, India asserts that it will chart its own path, even if it occasionally contradicts Washington's preferred policies. This assertiveness challenges conventional expectations about alliances, signaling that India values sovereignty, operational effectiveness, and long-term strategic advantage above immediate appeasement. Each procurement decision, therefore, is both a practical step to strengthen the armed forces and a symbolic act of independence that communicates India's growing confidence on the world stage. It reflects a nation unwilling to compromise its security or strategic autonomy, showing that bold, independent decision-making can reshape global perceptions and recalibrate power dynamics in subtle but unmistakable ways. Geopolitical balancing has emerged as one of the most defining features of India's foreign policy, a sophisticated approach that enables the nation to safeguard its interests while navigating a complex global landscape dominated by competing powers. India sits at a strategic crossroads, sharing borders with multiple influential nations, each with its own ambitions and regional designs. Rather than aligning exclusively with any single power, India has consciously chosen to maintain flexibility, cultivating relationships with multiple countries to ensure that it retains autonomy in decision-making. This balancing act allows India to extract maximum strategic advantage from each partnership, negotiating deals, alliances, and collaborations that serve its national interests without becoming beholden to any one power. In essence, India's approach to geopolitical balancing transforms the country from a passive actor into a shrewd player, capable of influencing regional and global equations in ways that often catch larger powers off guard. India's balancing strategy has been particularly evident in its interactions with the United States, China, and Russia, three major powers whose agendas do not always align. While the US has sought to position India as a strategic partner against China, India has resisted being treated as a simple pawn in great power rivalry. Simultaneously, India maintains long-standing ties with Russia, especially in defense, and engages China cautiously, navigating both competition and cooperation. By diversifying its alliances and keeping all major players engaged, India ensures that it is not trapped in a binary choice between superpowers. This nuanced approach allows India to leverage relationships to advance its economic, technological, and security objectives while maintaining the freedom to act independently when necessary. It is a diplomatic tightrope walk, one that requires careful calculation, foresight, and the courage to defy expectations. Economic and technological considerations further enhance India's ability to maintain geopolitical balance. By remaining open to trade and investment from multiple global powers, India reduces the risk of overdependence on any one country. It strategically negotiates access to technology, energy resources, and infrastructure development opportunities, ensuring that partnerships with one power do not compromise its ability to work with others. This multi-aligned approach also strengthens India's bargaining position, allowing it to demand concessions and favorable terms while keeping its options open. In doing so, India projects an image of a sovereign nation that is capable of shaping its own trajectory, rather than one constrained by external influence or the preferences of dominant powers. Geopolitical balancing, therefore, is not just a reactive strategy. It is a proactive assertion of national strength and independence. India's balancing efforts are also visible in international forums, where it often negotiates positions that reflect its nuanced perspective rather than strictly adhering to the agenda of any single global power. In matters of security, climate policy, trade, and regional stability, India has repeatedly demonstrated the ability to support initiatives that align with its priorities while resisting those that could undermine its strategic interests. This independence amplifies India's global stature, signaling that it is capable of contributing meaningfully to shaping the international order. By carefully balancing relationships and interests, India positions itself as an indispensable player whose decisions carry weight, even in the face of pressure from more powerful nations. Geopolitical balancing, therefore, becomes both a tool of national security and a statement of sovereignty, reflecting India's determination to chart its own path on the global stage. Economic leverage has become one of India's most potent tools in asserting its independence and negotiating power on the global stage. Unlike military might, which often takes decades to develop, economic influence is a more immediate and tangible source of authority, capable of shaping relationships and altering the behavior of other nations. India's rapid economic growth, burgeoning consumer market, and strategic importance in global supply chains have provided it with significant bargaining power. This leverage allows India to engage with countries, including the United States, on more equal footing, refusing to automatically defer to their preferences. By carefully calibrating trade policies, investment agreements, and technology partnerships, India can reward cooperation, discourage coercion, and assert its national interests without resorting to confrontation. The essence of economic leverage lies in the ability to make choices that maximize national benefit while minimizing vulnerability to external pressure, and India has increasingly demonstrated skill and confidence in wielding this influence. One of the most visible aspects of India's economic leverage is its control over critical markets and resources that other nations, including the United States, view as strategically important. India's position as a leading manufacturer, consumer, and innovator allows it to set terms and conditions in trade negotiations, particularly in sectors such as information technology, pharmaceuticals, and energy. By selectively engaging with global partners, India can secure advantageous deals while also signaling that access to its markets is contingent on mutual respect for its sovereignty and priorities. This strategy has repeatedly frustrated nations that expect unquestioned compliance or alignment with their policies, highlighting India's growing role as an economic force capable of influencing global decisions. Economic leverage, therefore, is not simply about wealth or GDP. It is about translating national capacity into strategic autonomy. Foreign investment and technological collaboration further amplify India's economic power. As the country modernizes its infrastructure, enhances manufacturing capabilities, and invests in high-tech sectors, it attracts partners who seek access to its vast market and skilled workforce. India's ability to choose from multiple options allows it to maintain negotiating strength, ensuring that no single country can dictate terms unilaterally. This flexibility strengthens India's position in critical negotiations, from defense procurement to digital infrastructure deals, reinforcing the message that its economic interests are non-negotiable. By carefully managing the interplay between domestic development and international engagement, India ensures that economic considerations are aligned with strategic priorities rather than subordinated to foreign expectations. India's economic leverage also extends to global supply chains, which have become increasingly vital in a connected world. By diversifying production and controlling critical nodes in technology, energy, and pharmaceuticals, India positions itself as an indispensable partner for global industries. This control allows India to influence timelines, pricing, and access in ways that enhance its strategic independence. In interactions with the United States and other major powers, this leverage serves as both a shield and a bargaining chip, demonstrating that India's growing economic weight can protect its sovereignty while compelling respect from even the most powerful nations. Ultimately, economic leverage is a manifestation of India's broader strategy of self-reliance, flexibility, and assertiveness, signaling that the nation can pursue its objectives confidently without being constrained by external pressure or expectation. Diplomatic assertiveness has become a defining feature of India's international posture, reflecting a deliberate and confident approach to global affairs. Unlike a reactive or passive diplomatic stance, assertiveness involves actively shaping discussions, making clear demands, and pursuing national interest unapologetically, even when it runs counter to the expectations of major powers. For India, this approach is a natural extension of its strategic autonomy, economic leverage, and geopolitical balancing. By projecting strength and clarity in its diplomatic engagements, India ensures that its voice carries weight in critical decisions on trade, security, climate policy, and international governance. This assertiveness signals to the world that India is not merely an observer or follower in global matters, but a proactive participant capable of influencing outcomes in alignment with its priorities and values. A striking illustration of India's diplomatic assertiveness can be seen in its approach to multilateral institutions and global summits. India does not hesitate to challenge proposals or frameworks that conflict with its interests, even when promoted by the United States or other influential powers. Whether in the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, or climate change negotiations, India has repeatedly demonstrated the ability to negotiate terms, assert positions, and safeguard its strategic and economic priorities. This requires a combination of careful planning, articulate communication, and a deep understanding of international law and norms. By consistently presenting well-prepared arguments and insisting on equitable treatment, India elevates its credibility and positions itself as a nation whose interests cannot be ignored or dismissed. Diplomatic assertiveness is also evident in India's regional engagements. In South Asia, India has leveraged its historical, economic, and strategic influence to negotiate terms that benefit its security and economic objectives without succumbing to pressure from larger global powers. India engages with neighboring countries on mutually beneficial projects while retaining the ability to act decisively when regional dynamics threaten its interests. This assertive approach has enhanced India's stature as a regional leader, demonstrating that diplomacy can be both principled and pragmatic. By striking a balance between cooperation and firmness, India ensures that its objectives are respected while also projecting a clear message that external interference in its affairs will not be tolerated. Economic and technological considerations further reinforce India's diplomatic assertiveness. By controlling access to critical markets, technology partnerships, and strategic investments, India can negotiate from a position of strength, demanding favorable terms and conditions in international engagements. This approach extends beyond bilateral relationships, influencing multilateral agreements and shaping global standards. India's ability to act independently while maintaining constructive relations with multiple powers highlights the sophistication of its diplomatic strategy. Diplomatic assertiveness, therefore, is not about confrontation for its own sake. It is about leveraging all available tools, economic, strategic, and political, to secure national interests effectively. It sends a clear signal that India's rise is deliberate, its decisions calculated, and its influence increasingly undeniable in the corridors of global power. India's technological and energy initiatives have become central pillars of its strategy to assert independence and enhance its global standing. By investing in cutting-edge technologies and diversifying its energy sources, India is demonstrating that it does not need to rely solely on traditional allies or dominant powers, including the United States, to secure its development or defense needs. Technological innovation and energy security are no longer just domestic priorities. They are essential tools of strategic leverage, allowing India to negotiate from a position of strength while maintaining operational autonomy. From advanced defense systems to renewable energy initiatives, India's calculated moves in these sectors reflect a long-term vision of self-reliance and global competitiveness, signaling to the world that it is ready to chart its own path without undue external influence. A clear example of this strategy can be observed in India's defense technology initiatives. By developing indigenous capabilities in missile systems, fighter aircraft, and naval assets, India reduces dependence on foreign suppliers, thereby protecting itself from external pressure or conditional assistance. Simultaneously, India continues to engage selectively with global partners, acquiring critical technologies from multiple sources, including countries outside US influence, to maintain a diversified technological base. This dual approach ensures that India is both innovative and strategically independent. It also sends a strong message to global powers. India's technological trajectory is determined by national interests, operational requirements, and long-term strategic considerations, not by external expectations or geopolitical pressures. Energy security further reinforces India's strategic autonomy. India's rapidly growing economy requires a reliable and diversified energy supply, prompting initiatives in nuclear, solar, wind, and hydroelectric power. By investing heavily in renewable energy and securing alternative sources for fossil fuels, India reduces reliance on any single supplier or geopolitical bloc, ensuring stability and independence in a volatile global energy market. This approach also enhances India's bargaining position in international negotiations, as it can make strategic choices without being constrained by external actors. By controlling critical elements of its energy portfolio, India strengthens both its domestic resilience and its global influence, demonstrating that energy policy is as much a tool of sovereignty as it is of development. India's moves in technology and energy are also integrated into broader economic and diplomatic strategies. By advancing domestic research and development, India boosts innovation, creates high-skilled jobs, and strengthens industrial capacity, which in turn attracts foreign collaboration on mutually beneficial terms. In global forums, India leverages its technological and energy initiatives to assert influence, negotiate favorable agreements, and participate meaningfully in shaping international standards. This combination of innovation, diversification, and strategic foresight illustrates that India's rise is deliberate, calculated, and resilient. Technological and energy moves therefore serve a dual purpose. They advance national capabilities while reinforcing India's broader strategy of self-reliance, asserting autonomy, and signaling to global powers, including the United States, that India can pursue its objectives independently, confidently, and without compromise. In the end, what we see is not mere coincidence or a momentary diplomatic victory. It is the result of decades of careful planning, unwavering courage, and unflinching commitment to national interest. India's bold moves in asserting strategic autonomy, diversifying defense procurement, mastering geopolitical balancing, leveraging its economic clout, projecting diplomatic assertiveness, and advancing technological and energy independence have collectively sent a clear and unmistakable message. The world's largest democracy will not be dictated to, even by the mightiest superpower. This is not arrogance, it is strategic brilliance, calculated confidence, and a refusal to compromise on sovereignty. The United States, accustomed to shaping the decisions of nations around the globe, suddenly finds itself confronted with a nation that plays by its own rules. India has shown that power is not just about military might or economic dominance. It is about vision, resilience, and the courage to act decisively. Through one bold move after another, India has demonstrated that it can protect its interests, chart its own path, and emerge stronger while demanding respect on the global stage. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence of true power. Not the power to intimidate, but the power to choose, the power to act independently, and the power to shape your destiny on your own terms. India has reminded the world, and the United States in particular, that boldness backed by strategy, intelligence, and foresight is not just impressive, it is humbling.